Jason, would you ever just spend $60 outright on a book?
I try not to. I know you spent quite a bit on the Polarion books from the Billy Meyer case, and we've done some podcasts on that. We just released Ratio 1 and Ratio 2.
Oh, those were good episodes.
Yeah, those were a while back. I watched a little bit of Ratio 1, haven't finished watching the whole thing. It's kind of narcissistic because I watch our shows, but I always forget stuff we say.
I don't remember anything.
And then when I listen to the show, I'm like, oh, okay.
I literally don't remember anything.
Plus, I like to hear what I say, because I have a lot of bro science.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, that's why we have to say these podcasts are for entertainment purposes only. We are not medical doctors.
We're not medical professionals.
We're not anything professional.
We're not offering financial advice. Nothing like that. Nothing.
Buy crypto.
Yeah. Buy Doge.
No. Yeah, I listened last night to the whole Dogecoin. So this co-founder of, and I promise I won't rip, we're going to get right into this, but this co-founder reached out. The co-founder of Ethereum reached out because he's got a new coin where it does, he said he was talking about some of the problems with Bitcoin as far as proof of work, and then not being able to, everything's based off of like 2009 or 2012 or something on Bitcoin. So he understands it as an asset, but the way that it can't scale up to do things that are fast and fun.
There's only one thing that scales up. Turtle coin.
Yeah. T-coin.
Yeah.
And you can go on turtle.co, sign up and put your wallet.
And it's the only rewards cryptocurrency that's actually based off of human work.
Yeah.
Fucking hammer drop.
You can get some right now.
Yeah, go ahead. Go get it.
Yeah, turtle.co.
You just got to work for it. All right. Let's go here. And yes, I did spend $60 on a book. They're extremely well made. They're some of the nicest books I've owned. And they're hard to get. They ship all the way over from Switzerland. I'm cool with it. Great.
That's crazy.
That's when
I get that. I mean, and plus you're studying and learning and trying to understand. So, any books like that, which would be, a lot of textbooks but there's a reason why textbooks are so expensive. We won't get into that. There's a conspiracy theory on that. Don't. It just pisses me off.
Here we go.
It pisses me off, Alex, that this is my last statement, and then we're getting into the sighting. It pisses me off that everyone made that our grandparents made these higher educational systems, and then they put people in mass amounts of human debt.
Mm-hmm.
And why didn't you make this shit fucking at least put plumbers and electricians? Community college needs to be free. I think all education. I think we're at fucking 2021.
Yeah.
If somebody wants to take the responsibility,
bro,
to educate, can't we not have bad neighborhoods and fucking have free education?
Yeah, I think we can.
And take care of people.
Oh yeah,
I sound super liberal, but I'm not. I'm like all around.
It's just human life. People should be educated. We should have a lack of violence. Okay, yes. And we should be able to keep people alive that are on streets that are starving.
Yes.
What's so hard about that? You're telling me Elon Musk can fucking go to Mars by 2024 and we don't have free education down here?
Or we still have these super low income.
Oh gosh,
dude, I don't want to. We talked about that in Turtle.com.
We're done.
Okay, so Lonnie Zamora,
incident.
This was in 1964. A police officer, Lonnie Zamora,
April 24th, Friday,
came. This is what happens. It's 5:50 p.m. and this is like typical old school Dukes of Hazards.
March, April. So, what's the temperature like
in Socorro? It's probably 70s.
But at 5:50, sun's probably going to set in an hour.
Mm-hmm.
So it's probably like low 60s. Mm-hmm. It's probably a little chilly. Go ahead.
He was in. There was a teenager that was speeding.
Classic.
That's just Duke of Hazard shit,
dude. This is how much speeding do we hear around here?
Yeah, desert highway. Yeah, I mean New Mexico has a problem with being. If you ever come here and you rent a car, be prepared for some serious aggressive driving.
Yeah.
And everybody goes fast.
Don't be shy to just absolutely mat your rental.
Yeah.
Just open it up.
Yeah, just give it some gas.
Yeah, give it whatever it can get.
So during this pursuit, Zamora notices what he thought was an overturned vehicle out in the desert.
Okay. All right, first of all, the guy's like blind, which is obnoxious. He's got these big Coke bottle glasses. And he's in a high speed pursuit, but he's looking out in the desert, And it's interesting that that's his train of thought. He's like, someone's speeding, the car's most likely overturned. But, so he's like, oh, I don't have to continue chasing this guy. He flipped his car over here. Well, maybe he's alive. Pull him out of it. What the hell kind of an extraterrestrial craft would look like an overturned vehicle? Tires up, kind of shaped like a rectangle.
Yeah, and like you said, unless he can't see very well.
Unless he can't see very well, right? So let's go.
Yeah, and so just so everybody knows, we've used an article before from them, just so we cite our sources. It's saucerco.com.
Yeah.
And they have great T-shirts, guys, if you like UFO stuff. So shout out to them. And this is an article that we took from them. He stopped his vehicle to investigate and offer assistance. As he approached the scene, he quickly realized it was an oddly shaped craft and was startled by a loud sound the craft had made. So was it broken? Or was it? Did it just land?
It's funny. Do you remember in the White Sands incident, the airlock device?
Yes.
Even Dr. Daniel W. Fry said it was extremely distinct. The noise, like so distinct. Like, what is that? And I think that's an interesting thing is that the sounds are also a little like perturbing for us. We're like, ooh, like I've never heard something like that. And that bothers a lot of people. Unknown sounds, that bothers people. Or even sounds that you do know and you're out in the dark. Certain animal sounds. So imagine if you hear something like almost artificial and it's like giant white egg shaped in the middle of the desert. You're like, what the hell's going on?
Yeah, and that's interesting. So let's stay there. The egg shaped craft. You see cigar shaped, you see all these different shapes, but an egg shaped craft.
Well, egg's genius. Think about, so if you go back to the earliest Nazi cars,
yeah,
the earliest, the design, they had wonderfully aerodynamic, teardrop, water drop, egg-shaped designs. Had the lowest coefficient of friction against the air, was the most aerodynamic, but the problem was it was difficult to manufacture and it wasn't safe to drive because we had to put it on 4 wheels. That's just what it was.
Mm-hmm.
But it did get great gas mileage, and we still don't design cars like that when we should. But the egg shape is also, the Orphic egg is also representative of a lot of deep creational ideology for the universe, what's going on, certain efficiencies. So if I'm going to build a craft that is representative of creation, I'd probably do it in the egg shape. It's an incubatory thing. It brings you places, right? It's efficient against outside forces. It'd probably make the most sense, but we need to consider something here. If you're using that shape, is it because you're still dealing with certain atmospheric frictions? And I'll get into this in a minute. I'm kind of front loading this. Are you still you're not completely evolved where, how come I couldn't have a giant square and fly it around?
A cube. Yeah.
I don't really need efficiency if I'm anti-grav, right? So I think this shape is also helpful for where this extraterrestrial race or culture is currently at in their own development.
Well, I mean, if you even think of how an egg travels and what it has to travel through, the resistance of going through. Yeah. I mean, if you're having the same thing experience in space, then you could go back to nature, look at the egg, see how it was designed, see its intent, and then you could be like, oh, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. And what if
whether it's going through a wormhole or whatever resistance it's going through, different dimensions.
And if you don't have a moving yoke in the inside, if it lands in water, it'll be upright.
Yeah.
It's always going to be at a really good shape for what it is.
Yeah, there's
it's also strong.
Yeah, there's an egg-shaped helicopter that the Special Forces use. They still kind of use them a little bit, but they use them in Vietnam big time. They're called Loach, is what they call the Loach. Yeah, just type in Loach helicopter.
I don't even know how to spell that.
So here's what would happen. Everybody loved them. They're like a small little helicopter, and they would hang off the sides and stuff. But
oh, yeah, Loach.
Yeah, you've seen them before. But they're egg-shaped. And the reason pilots loved them so much was you could crash them because, and Vietnam was a helicopter war, so we did a ton of crashes. Yeah. And the egg would just roll out, like the whole cockpit and stuff when it crashed. And it was like I
love that.
Yeah, it was like a super safe. So there are egg-shaped things out there. But not only did he notice a white egg-shaped craft, so this looks like a big egg, he noticed 2 humanoid figures in white coveralls standing beside the craft. So there's 2 things here, humanoid and white coveralls.
Yep.
So we have a white craft, white coveralls, humanoid. So he recognizes them as looking just like a human.
Okay, so they got 2 arms, 2 legs, and a head.
So this is not the Greylings or...
No, and, there's something interesting here is the fact that they're wearing coveralls.
Mm-hmm.
And they're white. Think about the advancement of clothing. What happened with yoga pants? They're freaking everywhere.
Yeah.
Very easy to put on.
Mm-hmm.
They're easy to wash. Mm-hmm. They form fit the body well. Mm-hmm. They breathe well. The technology's advanced actually quite a bit with the yoga leggings.
Mm-hmm.
So imagine if you just took that whole concept and, put it on the whole body.
Mm.
And if you are from a different sort of pressurized system in space or an atmosphere you're not used to, you're going to want a full pressurized suit. Would you not?
Well, I mean, we have flight suits.
You have flight suits, right? Because if the pressure gets up, you get scrambled on the inside, you die, right? And you also, and consider you are more advanced, you have to deal with certain types of radiations from our sun because that stuff's different. Things that are coming from the Earth and other things of that nature.
Star Trek, they had coveralls, right?
Well, who knows what the sensitivity is, right? So I have coveralls for fashion. I have it for utility. And the fact that they have them that they're white is also quite interesting. You also have to keep bacteria and that other stuff out. And so if it's white, you'd know if it's dirty if you touch something. Mm-hmm. Oh, time to fix or clean that. More so than any other color. So I think there's a lot to be said for the color and the choice of clothing that they're actually wearing. Coveralls are probably the future of clothing. The Playaran wore them, except the Playaran ones look like they were made out of Bopet. You know what Bopet is? Mm-hmm. It's that, you run a marathon, they give you that space blanket.
Yeah.
That's what that stuff's made out of. And it's brilliant. Why wouldn't you? It's completely radiation resistant. It's thermally perfect. And if you can find a way to make it breathe, it'd be the most incredible clothing you could ever wear. It also weighs nothing.
Well, I mean, it's funny, but I was thinking of Star Trek, and then on the military side of things, you can put rank on there and,
yeah,
an identification, you can have your name on there, so it makes it very, very simple.
It's very utilitarian.
I mean, we have that. I mean, they have flight suits or coveralls in the military, and they have a little patch. Then you stick a little leather patch on there, and it tells you who you are, what unit you come from. Well, so it's identification, quick identification too.
Yeah. Don't you just think it's the most efficient
It's utilitarian.
It's very utilitarian.
Yeah,
and that's what you would do in the future. If they're using an egg-shaped craft, your utilitarian mindset.
So would you be past fashion?
Yeah, you're way past fashion.
Yeah.
Fashion's a waste of time.
Well, even now, you're talking about yoga leggings and stuff. Mm-hmm. And I was thinking the other day, I was like, standing outside, and it was like 101 or 102 here. It's excessively hot. No, more hot. Usually it's in the 90s.
Yeah.
But it's super hot. And I was thinking people wore starched white shirts and suits during the summer. Ugh. Think in like Houston and even where you're from.
Yeah.
When it gets really hot.
Oh, gosh.
Those guys were wearing tweed jackets.
Yeah, no.
With starched white shirts.
I used to do it.
Yeah.
I can't even deny it. I used to do that.
Yeah. So, I mean, and now we're down to athletic wear.
Yeah.
Like everybody wears, I mean, you got our jeans. I mean, you're dressed up today with jeans.
I know.
I mean, I got Nike shorts
we're
on
usually
and a
chilling.
t-shirt.
Yeah, we're usually chilling.
Yeah, and doing work.
Yeah, but that's the thing, though. We refine ourselves towards comfort and utility over time.
Yeah. So I could see it happening.
Yeah. And, think about this from Lonnie Zamora's standpoint. Who the hell's wearing white? What kind of, other military operation? The Russians, would they be wearing white? No, we wear white when it's like an Arctic theater that we're going to combat in. But you don't just fly down to New Mexico and wear white. There's other colors to blend into the desert.
Yes.
These people weren't trying to blend in, were they?
Well, also they were humanoid to the point because Alan in the White Sands incident, he couldn't even come here because he had to spend years to adapt to our climate. So these people already adapt to it, whether they had spent years to get here.
Or they didn't think they thought they were adapted. I'm sorry. Or they thought they were adapted, and they're not really.
Yeah.
And I'll also get into that next. So go ahead.
The figure eventually vanished with the loud sound of what seemed to be two doors clinging shut Lonnie made several attempts to contact police headquarters. This is interesting, but was not able to surpass the heavy static.
Heavy static. So most of these things are emitting some sort of field. We know that.
This is CB radio.
Yeah, and so this guy's using some sort of citizens band radio on the police frequency. I mean, that's going to get upset. If something's emitting a field, it's going to just jack off your...
Yeah.
That's
It will jack off you.
I meant jack up, but jack off works. I mean, everybody's got to release something sometime.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like it.
Release your frequency.
Yeah, release your frequency. Prometheus.
We need a T-shirt. It says release your frequency. It just be an inside joke.
Oh man. So you could understand how the radio signals were getting thrown off. Our stuff's very rudimentary. This thing has a radial field that's coming off of it. Now the doors cling shut loud.
Mm-hmm.
That means the pace, the gearing for these doors are not perfected. It's also not like a dissimilar metal.
Mm-hmm.
Dissimilar metal locks usually they take magnetism and it allows you to shift two different types of alloys across themselves smoothly with no noise and then have them come back together fused, completely sealed. But it doesn't sound like that's what's going on here. If you have a large like door that's coming closed, that means it's not timed. The gears are not timed when they come together.
So these are less involved aliens. They're more involved than us, but they're less involved than something that would be quiet and perfect.
Than Alon or the Playaran.
Right.
Right.
So we have the two clinging doors, heavy static. Zamora noticed, this is interesting, a strange red insignia on the craft as it blasted off the ground with a bluish-orange flame. So let's talk about the red insignia and the bluish-orange flame.
Okay. There's so much packed into history with this. If we go to the Mayan culture, there was a god or a deity or ruler at that time, which they, carved into a lot of the artwork down there in Central America. And he would ride this spaceship, but it did have smoke that would come out the back of it, flames. Right? The Bhagavad Gita, there were vehicles that would move around in these Vedic scripts, and there would be flames and smoke, right? They would be moving around. But the thing is, they came from the stars. Every single one of them is described as coming from the stars. And at first, this didn't make much sense, but then I started to get it. The propulsion systems, we develop them over time. They become better. And here's the best metaphor I can make for it. We test regular rocket thrusters here, Pratt Whitney engines, whatever it might be for some military craft, and we put ion thrusters with it. I don't need to turn my ion thruster on, my ion propulsion, while I'm on the ground. It's not really necessary. It's only necessary when I'm in flight to decrease friction.
Yes, yeah, that's what you're saying.
Okay, so for them, I don't need to turn on my anti-grav right here because I actually wouldn't be able to get off the ground. I still need a thruster to get off the ground. So now back in history, if we look at these different points, these ships would take off using all this noise, smoke, fire, blah, 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 but then and then have themselves go up to the stars and disappear. The Playaran actually stated that their earliest types of craft that they had to take off like this. They said it was the best way for them to get off the ground in their earliest stages before, whatever type of anti-grav work they were doing, with their ships. Their beam ships is what they call them. We have to get a thruster to still move us off the ground, to go against the force of the Earth. It was too difficult to do the gravity calculations for specific planets. So they're like, let's just use the thrusters and just blast the thing and get us up there. And once we're in a low gravity environment, then we can use our albeit rudimentary anti-grav or, gravity propulsion systems to move us through space. Is that making sense?
No, that makes sense.
So this, in my mind, looking at this, leaves them from an egg-shaped craft, doors coming together kind of hard like a big hatch, right?
Right.
The humanoid extraterrestrials essentially running away the second they recognize Zamora's there. So that's also very interesting. The second you see this other human being, so if you are advanced and you have gotten here, are you running away quickly because of a state of fear? Or did you land? Were you doing a survey? and your boss told you, do not interact with the human beings of Earth. And you're like, oh, snap, there's one over here. We got to get the hell out of here. I'm going to get in trouble, right? I broke command. I'm not supposed to interact with Zamora, but he did have a sighting on them.
Yeah, this is interesting. So I just looked up blue-orange flame. The blue color flame indicates that there is safe, efficient, and more complete fuel combustion.
Correct.
And you will always want to see a blue color flame.
That's why SpaceX is using the new methane boosters.
Because I want people to understand this blue-orange. And then a gas flame appearing yellow or orange in color are behaving with pops of yellow. So yellow would be the worst. Or orange indicates an improper ratio of oxygen for combustion.
Right. So you can see what the efficiency of their thruster systems are in terms of BTUs being output, depending on the color.
So almost, I've seen that on a gas stove.
So
you see the blue color.
Yeah. Right. It's the most efficient way to burn. And then if you are cooking on a gas top and you crank it up at the high end, it starts to lose that combination mixture and start to move with the atmosphere of your oxygen in the kitchen. And then that's when the flame becomes a little bit more yellow and starts to dance and flicker more.
Yeah. So, because they have, it's so interesting because they're looking at gas and it depends on what they're using in the system. But blue flames burn hotter than orange flames. And blue flame can reach up to 3,000 degrees Fahrenheit.
Yeah.
So, and it heats up quickly, can be able to handle higher, so that would, the blue orange would explain a lot.
Well, the blue orange tells me my heat signature. It tells me efficiency, but it could tell me what sort of chemical burns blue orange. Yeah.
And it says that he was startled by the flame. So it must have been some pretty heavy duty, whether there was, so there had to have been thrusters on the bottom.
Yes.
Of the craft, 3 of them or whatever, who knows
how
many.
Whatever's enough to, so it's called a pyrotechnic colorant. Which is the chemical compound that causes the flame to burn a particular color. So if they're talking about that blue orange, I'd be really interested to know
what fuel they were using.
Right.
Probably some algae or something.
I'd have to use some research on that, but it's quite interesting.
I mean, it scared him so bad that he ran and hid behind his squad car for cover, So here's a police officer. Yeah.
The thing's loud, dude. A rocket's taking off. You'd be like, well, this is crazy. Yeah, I should probably back up a little bit.
Yeah, and then he said it went up, hovered for 30 feet, which isn't that high. 30 feet is not that high. And then from there, it hovered there for a while and then took off slowly, he said, to the west. So it hovered for a while. So they must have been, whether they were in communication or whether they're trying to figure out if everything's okay. Why did they land? 1 would be the question.
And then 2, why'd they hover?
Yeah. And then take off slow.
I think they were looking at him.
That's a good theory, yeah.
Think about our camera technology. When I back up my camper van, dude, I have a 360-degree view around me the whole time on a screen. You've seen it. Put us a million years in the future. What are your cameras going to be like?
Oh, yeah. The whole thing is...
I actually don't have to be outside of the craft. Who knows if they were out there just for the experiment of feeling the atmosphere themselves? Who knows? Who knows what they were doing? Who knows how they...
Because they were there before.
Yeah.
The craft had already landed. They were hanging out before he got there. Because he happened to see him and thought it was an overturned vehicle.
Yeah, it is not the first time that these guys have been around here. They just happen to be cherry picking down there. In 1964 in Socorro, not many people.
He was so scared that he dropped his glasses, so now he can't see shit.
God, Lonnie.
And then he left him there, as he stumbled, which I could see. You could picture the whole thing. Here, this thing is loud, like you said, like a rocket. And then you run away, and then it's like these Coke bottle glasses fall.
You trip on like one freaking.
Oh yeah, you'd be scared shitless. You're seeing a UFO.
Yeah.
By then he would know what it is.
2 guys running around in white jumpsuits. He knows at this time what he's looking at.
Yeah, in the 60s, because UFOs had been out for a while. While still at the site, Zamora contacted his friend, Sergeant Sam Chavez of the New Mexico State Police.
Classic New Mexican name.
And he must have been on duty because he arrived within 10 to 15 minutes of the incident.
At the state police, this is funny, before you're coming into Socorro, that one of the state police barracks is like 5, maybe 10 minutes outside of Socorro itself.
And then it said soon thereafter more people arrived. So he must have called some people, our other officers, because he would have been on the radio because you didn't have cell phones back then.
No.
So he called on the radio. So probably other officers showed up that were on duty or whatever too.
Correct.
Within 90 minutes, U.S. Army officials sent Captain Richard D. Holder from White Sands Missile Range to view the site.
Okay.
Now, I want to know, how did the U.S. Army know that this happened? Did they hear it on the radio?
Of course. Yeah, they listen to it all. Everybody's paid. They have Army officials all the way up through New Mexico. They have them in our news centers. They have them in, a couple of the major.
Talking about the intelligence branch.
The intelligence branch is everywhere around here. If someone gets any word of this thing, it's going to travel immediately. But here's the interesting part. The Army thought it was important enough to send somebody immediately.
Yeah, 90 minutes for the Army is pretty quick.
They put that guy in a helicopter and they sent him up here immediately. That's the only way you can get from White Sands to Socorro in 90 minutes. Or less. That's the amount of time it took since the thing started.
So the thing gets off the ground, hovers, takes off slowly towards the west.
Yeah.
And within 90 minutes of that happening,
yes,
there is a Army captain.
Dude, that's fucking incredible.
On the fucking ground.
That's incredible.
Looking and investigating it.
Yeah, if you think about it, that is incredible. And if it's that much of an investigation, there is so much interest from the military-industrial complex around this event. Around this phenomena. They are very, very interested.
Well, they have to. If they can get a hold of the technology, I mean, we've talked about this before, but it's a race.
Yeah.
I mean, look at we're not nuclear technology anymore, but look at the amounts of technology that we have out now. That's, I mean, you think that this is all stopped? People think that the race has stopped. No. At least before, we only had one thing to focus on, that was nukes.
Yeah.
Now we've got nanotechnology, biological warfare. We've got
certain type of cyber technology.
I mean, the technology just explodes, and as there's way more technology, these military-industrial complexes across all the world, whether it's Russian, Chinese, Indian, whatever it may be, Middle East, however you look at it, they're just having to. It's just a shit show.
You got to keep up.
They have to be ahead
all the time.
Yeah, so I mean, they've got little flies that fly around, and little insects. They've already proven that. But
they got fake birds and stuff like that.
So he and his team, it says. So Richard T. Holder was the captain that was sent here. So not only was it him, but it was a team that showed up, investigated the scene, and looked for any indication of a hoax.
Okay, so we got.
So how close is the Army base from White Sands Missile Range?
Dude, that's a ways away from Socorro. Yeah. That's 2.5 hours. You can, from that calculation of when this all started and when he keyed in on his own radio, that would tell you how fast they flew here in a helicopter. So before we get into, we'll have to get into this next episode. We said he and his team investigated the scene and looked for any indication of a hoax. This is very, very interesting, and we will come back for this on part 3.